Okay.
I guess we are. You are.
Yeah, I'll call the meeting to order. This is the Park and Recreation Commission meeting for Thursday, July 25th, 2024. We do have a quorum and we are on Zoom today. First order of business. Approval of minutes from the June 27th meeting. Is there a motion?
Move to approve.
Second,
Okay. And second by who?
Cara.
Cara? Okay, there's motion and second. Any corrections or discussion? Otherwise, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Unfinished business. Present and future sculpture location. Approval of a plan.
This afternoon, we have Michelle Nass with us. Michelle is with the West Bend Friends of Sculpture. Michelle and I have reviewed what she's going to present this evening as far as future plans for the West Bend Friends of Sculpture and the request for today's meeting, the placement of two sculptures, one at River Shores, excuse me, one at River Shores and one at Riverside. The one at River Shores is not part of park property, but in the past, the Park Commission has always reviewed all sculptures that go on all city property. The city of West Bend would still want to follow that policy, so even the River Shore site is not city park property. We have been requested that the commission review that location like they would other ones. If it does move forward after today's discussion, I would end up taking it before common council for final approval. So with that, Michelle, if you'd like to take it away.
Sure, I think I have the same, just to make sure I have the same, oh yes. So, Mike and I went and looked at a couple sites, so we have two sculptures that came into our possession. They were decommissioned from a sculpture park in Eau Claire. Usually when we get sculptures in from that are going to be donated or decommissioned, they're not always great. And these two pieces are exceptional. Mike and I took a drive over. They are at Saragraph. If you go in their main entrance, you can drive all the way down and they're to where you can't drive anymore and they're on the left. You can actually see them. They're both on, there's one is supposed to be on its side, the other one is on its side, it goes upright. So our committee at West Bend Friends of Sculpture, our site committee went around and looked at a couple potential sites. One of them being Riverside Park. So when you come into Riverside Park by the playground, there's also Tom Lidke, Place of Origin sculpture, which is Ajuga Daydream, sorry, that is Tom's other piece. So we're kind of looking around and it's a lot of open space. And then our other sculptures are a little bit farther down. So we thought this would be a nice kind of, you know, transition into the park system again. And there's like the Frisbee golf that's over there. So the spot that we looked at is right behind the tennis courts. So you go in there and there's like a nice long path. There's really nothing there. So we're really not getting in the way of anything. So and it's a 15-foot long sculpture. I mean, it's, when you see it, yeah, it's they're big pieces. They're pretty massive pieces. So that is the Rib Mountain, which is the one that's the.
And I don't think there's a Frisbee hole there. There's one over here, but there's none.
Oh, there isn't. Yeah, we checked that.
Okay.
So we wouldn't be in the way
Okay.
of anything over there. So yeah, I think, you know, again, we don't generally, when people offer us sculptures, they're generally not this good. So that's a great piece to have, big presence in the park system. And then the second piece is the taller piece is called Ribbon, and it's by the same artist, Stephen Fisher. So we looked at a couple different spots, River Shores being one, and I've talked to the property management company at River Shores, and it's the smaller triangle that's between Veterans and Village Greenway. So there's actually two triangles, and people get a little confused, but it's surrounded by trees, but it's not, we kind of stood in there, it's a pretty large area. And I think to put a sculpture right in the middle there would be really cool, especially for the people who live at River Shores and work at the River Shores YMCA. I mean, they're looking down at those two pieces. And we do have the Tilted Donut that's at that.
And the Tilted Donut's gonna stay there now.
That is gonna stay.
Yeah.
That was We had to do the exploration,
yeah.
but we were not going to move that. That would have been $12,000 to move that piece, so that was
That's right.
kind of
Okay,
ridiculous. So, I'm still waiting to hear back from the Hendricks Group if they have any opposition, because they do maintain that site. Even though it's city property, they do all the mowing and the trimming. And so she had sent the information I sent her to their corporate office, and I still have not heard back, and I put in another phone call, and I'm just waiting to hear. They were very excited about the piece. They actually thought they owned that small triangle. They don't. But they do maintain it, so.
And that's part of the developer's agreement from 10, 15 years ago. The developer wanted certain green space and things like that on that side of the river, and the agreement with the city at that point in time, they would be city-owned properties and maintained by that development, so.
And it is, again, it really is part of that whole river walk. Just another reason to get a little farther down. I mean, there's Cafe Floriano over there, there's the Grand Hex, there's Children's, so I mean, really.
Chamber's
the-
moving over
Yeah,
there.
oh, are they really? I mean, that whole area I think is great. We get a ton of foot traffic over there, so I think it's a really great piece to extend the collection.
Will this ribbon sculpture, will it stand up above the plantings that are around it at all, or?
No,
Well, depending on how.
Okay.
yeah,
But it is, this one also measures 14 and a half feet tall.
Okay,
So you can see, I mean, it does.
Yes.
You know, and a lot of
Okay.
times when you look at these sculptures, you think they're gonna be imposing, but it's kind of a cool space to be able to walk around a piece like
Okay.
that. And it's not, you know, it's Corten steel, so it has that natural sensibility
Right,
to it
right.
also. So, you know, it's not a painted piece or a stainless piece. I think it'll blend in, you know, really well. So, are there any questions? Oh, and these are also, so these are on a 5-year loan. So most of our sculptures, when we have a 5-year loan, sometimes they're 10-year loan. They generally, especially pieces this large, they don't go anywhere.
okay, that was.
So they're,
After 5 years, I'd have to move it all back and forth.
we're paying for that. And I will tell you that to install these two pieces is gonna be over $10,000.
Okay,
So we have to get a crane in
Yeah.
for both. And we have to, you know, we have to get the proper footings. So, you know, there's a lot of work that goes into these, and a lot of times when people find out that they have to, they want it, they have to uninstall it and so forth, but technically. They are, you know, for sale,
okay,
but so, you know, we have the 5-year loan agreement
Okay.
on that, but. Even Tilted Donut was a lease, and it's never left. It's actually our sculpture now.
I have no problem with these two. I might have some questions about the others.
Oh,
that
sure.
you're- Brian, but these two, I have no problem.
I'll just jump in just for one quick second. So going to the Riverside site, it's a large sculpture that's being proposed, but it's also a large site. It's a large open space. There are 5 other sculptures on that property already. So someone who wants to do a small sculpture walk or ride or anything like that, this would just add to that on that property. Installation for both sculptures would be West Bend Friends of Sculpture, any restoration, anything else like that. Right now, for the city departments, development, engineering, administration, everything else, everyone supports both locations, as long as when the utility hotlines are called in and it needs to get adjusted, and just field operations like that, but everyone else, everyone in the city hall structure here, everyone's in support of these locations.
I like the locations, I really do. I think that, you know, with Riverside Park here and that, like you said, there's 4 or 5 other ones now, and a lot of people ride or walk the trails there, and, you know, it's something to look at, you know, and.
I know in the past you talked about like the bison, you wanted it on a main drag where it's got a lot of visibility. These wouldn't get as much visibility.
These get a
But-
ton of, I mean, the foot traffic is better there than, you know, the Bison's great because people, they do take their bikes up there, and I've gone up there. I actually ate lunch up there one day, and we're so pretty.
The bison,
I had the Bison, I sat on the rock, I grabbed my lunch and I sat up there, which was really great. So, but again, when you start to walk the trail, I went out with my daughter, and I couldn't believe how many people were actually out and about even on hot day walking, so. I think foot traffic is probably even more important than car traffic. I know, you know, Justice was, you know, he really wanted people, you know, he's trying to drive the, you know, customers to barn, so that was this big thing, people see it coming by, and I think there's things going on in the barn, which is great, again. This is gonna get a little bit more foot traffic, but there's, I mean, look at all the cars that are parked down there, I mean, it's. Well, I worked at River Shores YMCA for 10 years, and when I first started there, that parking lot was empty, there's, nobody even wanted to come over there, and now it's absolutely, people were pulling out. And wanted to be, you know, the Savoring Time used to be in that complex, she pulled out, and I think somebody else was there, they pulled out. And now Tochi pulled out, and now it's kind of the place to be, so.
So do we want to vote on the entire plan? Is that the idea?
Well, we can, I mean, we can go with these, so if you have questions on the other ones, and these are just, the other pieces, the Jessica K. Bodner and the kayak launch. Those are just, you know, this is all in the
We're not
works.
sure on that. Those-
So, you know, we can come back.
You know, so today we are only looking for action on these two
That's what I
sculptures
thought.
that Michelle talked about.
Yes.
But in preparation for today's meeting, when Michelle and I met and talked, I asked her to present also to the commission future plans. It's difficult for the West Bend Friends of Sculpture to have a game plan where it's like, this year we're gonna do this sculpture, this sculpture. They don't know what's gonna come before them or what they find throughout the years. But Michelle and I did talk about future plans, so the commission understands it's not just a random thing with this organization. There are some ideas and some long-term plans and objectives. So that was part of Michelle's presentation and PowerPoint today. So again, we're just asking for action on those two sculptures, but Michelle can touch base on some of these other topics.
Well, first of all, I'll make a motion to approve these two locations with these two sculptures.
We got a
I'll
motion.
second.
There's motion and a second. Is there any other discussion or questions? All those in favor signify by saying aye,
Aye.
Aye.
and motion carried. So go ahead with these two.
Thank you. So it would probably, we're looking at, we're getting some funds together and then trying to get some engineering, of the bases, make sure that they're studying and hire cranes and find a time. So ideally, we'd still like to get this done late fall.
Okay. Sounds good.
Do you have time to talk about the other sites?
Yes, please.
Okay. So, the South Roundabout, that's long been one of West Bend Friends of Sculpture's desired sites. We've been told yes, we've been told no, we've been told yes again. That's a very tricky site because of all the utilities. And the signage, and you want people, you don't want to have, I even feel like the trees at MOA are it feels like a curtain, and I don't want to have to do that to the hub. I feel like that's kind of.
It's a tricky roundabout too.
It is a
right?
very tricky, I've seen
You don't want
people,
planes
yeah,
They're off.
see people drive up in it. So one of the things when I started exploring different artists, again, is something with a lot of presence, but something you can see through, which is kind of a big ask. And I stumbled across this artist, Jessica K. Bodner. She's just outside of Bozeman, Montana, and she does these, as you can see, everything has this open sensibility. So like this, you can see right through it, but it has a lot of character, a lot of structure to it, and a lot of big impact. All our pieces are painted. If you also notice, like here, they all cast a really interesting shadow. So I've talked to her. She's done mostly site-specific work, and so she really understands the site. And I went around with a video, and we talked about it. And she has the plans from the city and looking at all the utilities, and she's like, "Oh yeah, this is crazy. This is a lot." But she's like, "It potentially can be done. We would have to do a lot of site prep ahead of time by using steel plates rather than putting footings." So a little bit different approach. Again, we're just in the beginning phases of, looking. I have not come across anything quite like her work that you can actually see through. Signs will still be visible and utilities will not be disturbed. So it's pretty rare to find somebody who truly understands, because a lot of artists, I will tell you, are a little bit on the flaky side, and they don't understand some of the restrictions that go along with it. So
I like the visibility. I think that's huge. It
It's
just can't be one solid block thing, you know,
Can't do it.
driver's sight line. Now you're just talking about putting one of these in that site, right? Not
Yes.
three, right?
So
Just
these are
one.
Just examples, yeah,
okay.
these are examples of her work.
Okay.
So even the ribbon, you know, John Tomatis is like, why don't we put the ribbon in the middle? I feel like it's so imposing. You also don't want someone to come through in a car and be like,
Well, that's
you know,
what's gonna happen.
But on something like this, it's less noticeable, it's less jarring to the eye. So that's why I guess I like the openness and the negative space of these pieces, but yeah, for sure one.
Okay.
And we understand it, you know, there's actually utilities, I think, right in the middle, correct?
Yeah, I'll just jump in just for some additional information. We did do a survey of the entire bullet or the entire grass circle. And we have those all laid out and surveyed, and Michelle has those. So when they do start talking about putting something in there, large footings underground and all that might not work, or one
Yeah.
small footing with another portion of the sculpture on a steel plate or a combination of that. That location, these ideas have been reviewed by development, engineering, utilities, things like that. So everyone knows that something might or will be going in there. Like, specifically which sculpture or anything else like that, we don't know as of yet, but generally speaking, the city's provided them with a green light with all these variables that they have to somewhat follow. Sight lines, traffic movement, all that, Kunkel Engineering, Max Mirachel, city engineer, they've reviewed all that. What we're looking at today on this slide would be eligible for that site. Except for the only concern would then be what's underground and how it all lays out, so.
Have we
there's been
talked
a
to-
lot- Go ahead,
Sorry,
Craig.
have we talked to PD about,
Yep,
about it?
PD.
Okay.
PD and engineering were kind of our two biggest ones, just.
Okay.
Get past those two hurdles or guidelines for those two groups. After that, it's, you know, it just becomes a physical fit with the utilities that we have underground.
And this would be something, again, she comes up with a brand new design, but these are just examples of her work. Does anyone have any other questions? And I'll keep you informed as, you know, we get a little bit farther down. I mean, this is going to be, oh yeah, that's next one.
Because the PD and everyone else involved, I mean, you can, once she gets one, I mean, she can work with city staff, right?
Yeah,
And doesn't
right.
have to come back to us.
And I'll
Well,
probably,
eventually it will, it would have to, for, once we find the sculpture that would go there, it would still have to come before commission and again, common council. But when Michelle and her group come forward, they present it to me, I then move it through all the other departments first. Because we're not gonna bring it before the commission and council and all that,
Right.
and a city department has a concern with it or something, we would do all that
That makes sense.
administrative work ahead of time, so.
And are you talking about this for next year, right? Nothing at all
yes,
for this
oh,
year at
no,
all?
so this is gonna be.
A year or
from the
two down the
ground
line.
up. Yeah,
Okay.
I mean, the bird took.
We
well,
might
I
not
mean,
be
it was-
commissioners then anymore.
You can still come. You can still go ahead and see it. And I have talked to Lori Winters at the Museum of Wisconsin Art. She also likes Jessica's work. And, you know, thinks it's a nice fit, so that's always a hurdle for us to get through. And I am working with Claire Ralph's group, and they're gonna help fund the
Okay.
piece also. So,
Good.
cause it's probably gonna be close to $100,000 sculpture.
Oh.
So.
Yeah, no,
This is an ambitious project, but the whole world of sculpture and art is going through the roof right now.
Okay.
Materials, everything, shipping, it's not gonna get any cheaper, so. So moving on, the kayak launch. So I was over at the Museum of Wisconsin Art one day and I saw Mike. I thought he was gonna save the underwater trash can, so I know that there's some concern over there with rising water.
Mhm.
I mean, it's becoming an issue. I
above
don't think
water
it's
now.
gonna, yeah. But this is another site that we've looked at. Again, really high visibility for anybody driving or walking. And how do we best reflect, you know, West Bend? You know, we explored, there was a Native American artist, unfortunately, he had passed away, but he had done some almost like the skeleton of a canoe in stainless steel, which was kind of cool, kind of a nod to the Native Americans who were here before us. That's just one idea. So we're looking, something, I mean, it's a kayak launch, so something with, that has to do with the city and the river. And again, something that you know darn well, that people have their kayaks out there, it's gonna get banged.
And it would be on the grassy area, right?
Yeah, so with this location, prior to Riverwalk construction, we internally just brief discussions. Do we want some sort of shade structure over the top? Cause this entire location, it's a destination. Do we want a sculpture up on top? The sculpture that's up on top is an interactive where, okay, we don't need to add benches, et cetera, because that sculpture would provide some of that. That first step down on the kayak launch is turf and possibly something then in that location. So to be honest with you, it's a destination on that section of Riverwalk, and I think what we do there's gonna be important that we make the right choices and decisions, and I think it can be really awesome. And I look forward to, working with the West Bend Friends of Sculpture that my brain's not gonna provide the city with the right answer. It's gonna take more, it's gonna take an organization, a couple of organizations to really come up with a good fit for that. There's been discussion with the downtown master plan as to what to do in that location. There's been discussion with obviously the sculpture committee, but today you go down there, that's why it's kind of open and generic, and we didn't have a solid plan prior to, construction as to what we wanted to do, things like that. And it would also, what's in the floodplain, so we'd have to go through that engineering process and all that. So people talk about the rotary down on Veterans down by the hub with this other sculpture as being a challenge. This kayak launch could even be more of a challenge as far as engineering and floodplain and all that. But it's good to have it on our radar. And Michelle and I have had really good discussions on her. We've talked to Claire Rouse and that group about some ideas for down there, again, the master plan for downtown. So we need to come up with a good, solid plan for that location.
So I'm trying to pull this up. So yeah, Mike was saying there's 3 different levels. So there's this lower, upper, and then behind also, which we've discussed seating over there, which, seating, it really isn't our forte either, but if you know where the depot is, we've got the main shale on it, which is great. And actually La Rosa does a fantastic job of maintaining that shade structure for us. I think one of the rivets pulled out one time and they were there, they took it down and brought it back within days, which was great. I look at that upper spot. I mean, it's less than 1,000 square feet on that upper.
Not a lot of room.
It's not a lot of room. That may be, I don't think it would be crowded if you had some sort of bench system there and a shade structure.
Yep.
Again, I think that's working, you have to remember MOA's looking right across at that. Are they gonna like something like that? I'm not sure. I am gonna try, I will send this. I don't know if I can pull this up. I can't.
If you have other information, you can just share it with me. And I
Yeah,
can
so
send it up to
there's a couple
commission.
companies that do outdoor seating, but there's a really cool, it's called a loop. So it comes up like this, it hooks around, so it creates a little bit of shade on the top, and then the seats below, I mean, they use them in like commercial. I don't know if they would last a Wisconsin winter or not. Might be something that you.
This last winter would have.
Yeah, this last couple winters. I will send that to you, Mike, if you
Sure.
want to share that with everybody. I have shown that same, piece to Claire and to Lori, and they both thought it was, quite interesting, but I'll email you the link. It's not gonna here. You can kind of see this picture, but if I click on it, it just goes, but that's actually seating.
Okay.
It's pretty cool. It's very modern.
Yeah.
And I think they were really reasonably priced. I think I was surprised at how reasonable, like you buy them in sections, and I think for the 3 sections, and there's different configurations you can do with them, I think they were like 4,000 a piece, so that's like, it really was not crazy. Again, I was expecting it to be a little bit more. But again, we're still in the exploration stages of the kayak launch, but I'd like to actually watch someone, how they get their kayak in there. Are we?
That's part of the reason I talked about put it on the grass area so that there is room because they're all
Yeah.
over the
Down below.
concrete.
Yeah,
sure.
yeah, so, yeah, I certainly don't wanna get in the way of anybody, and we can do also. Again, a taller structure, a linear structure on that spot, so again, you preserve the view, but then you've got something that's up a little bit higher. Just a thought, so,
That's a work in progress.
Yes.
it
yeah,
is,
yeah.
yeah, so.
I
think
like the
that-
ideas, so I'm
Yeah.
glad you guys are moving forward or looking at it. It looks good.
I like to have sculpture all along the Riverwalk, to be honest, it's just there's such great spots, and even when I was at River Shores. We ended up behind. Those offices, and that's all overgrown, I don't know who owns that. Property, so there's, off of. Veterans and, not that, yeah, Veterans and Village Greenway. Where it goes back to River Shores on the back end.
The open lots,
Yeah.
that's all
just-
privately owned. Yep.
Oh, yeah, it's really overgrown,
Mhm.
it's kind of sad.
Future
That's a
development.
future.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
the
Yep.
Second
That would be a
phase.
great spot. I'll put a sculpture right in there. With the reason. So I will
Okay.
do Mike this.
Sure, nope, I can share with the commission.
Yep.
That'd be great.
All right,
Thank you.
Any
So
other
much.
questions?
no, thanks.
That's
Unless other
outstanding.
commissioners have anything, but no, thanks for
Thank
your,
you.
for keeping us
Yes.
updated.
Well, thank you. I always appreciate.
Good.
You guys giving me the time.
Any other questions for her, by anyone? Good. Move on. Thank you.
I'd love to stay, but I've got.
No,
to clear back.
that's okay.
All right, new business. Resolution authorizing the transfer of YAR funds for payment of expenses.
So our department is requesting approval to transfer $1,200 from the YARC fund to an expense account to pay for supplies for Special Olympics. As of June 30th of this year, there was $28,700 in that fund. Thank you.
That's what it's for.
That's a no
And
brainer.
the fund is set up for therapeutic
Yes. I
recreation.
make a motion to approve.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Motion and a second to
Mary
approve
Beth.
transfer. Mary Beth. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Motion carried. And Ryan's gonna tell us about the donations to the department.
Yep, two donations tonight. The first one is from Enchantment in the Park for $10,000. It is their final installment for the Regner Beach House renovation. Thank you to Enchantment in the Park for their donation to that project. Second donation is from West Bend Friends of Parks and Recreation for $10,000. Also, that group's final installment for the Regner Beach House renovations. Thank you to the West Bend Friends of Parks and Recreation for their beach house renovation support.
Their motion to accept these donations?
I make a motion to accept the donations.
And a
Second.
Is that Carl?
Yes.
Okay, motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, Enchantment in the Park and Friends of West Bend Park.
Adjournment.
There being no other business, we adjourn.
All right. Yeah, where's your gavel?
Thanks for tuning in, everybody.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
Thank you, everyone.
Take care. Have a good evening.
Thank you.